Can you all hear me? Okay. This whole eating the mic thing doesn't work so well for me. So in addition to it being Father's Day, today is the first day that we're being joined and led by our new music director, Kai Brown. Kai, whose pronouns are they, them, aka Kai Lee Michaels, is an extraordinary individual who embodies various forms of artistic expression and activism. As a non-binary music conductor, teacher, drag queen, stand-up comedian, published writer, and preacher, Kai showcases a remarkable range of talents. Kai has over 15 years of music ministry experience in multiple church settings. While in Colorado, Kai has implemented, led, and maintained many missional outreach programs such as Music Intern, youth, and homeless outreach programs. Members of Kai's choruses have performed at Lincoln Center in New York City, across Texas, and throughout Colorado. Beyond their artistic pursuits, Kai remains an active and influential figure within the Colorado queer community. Kai serves as a leader, using their platform to promote love, hope, and justice. Kai's commitment to creating a more inclusive and equitable society is a testament to their character and the positive impact they have on those around them. In Kai's downtime, which apparently isn't much, they like to binge Netflix while hanging with their dog Kruger, going to the gym, spending time with friends, and seeking the divine in the most unconventional places. Please welcome Kai Brown to the All Souls community. So welcome to all of you, including everyone joining us on Zoom. Please turn around and wave to Zoom. Thank you for being here. Of course, there are as many different perspectives on the meaning of Father's Day as there are fathers, and those who've had or not had fathers. It's a holiday fraught with memories, meanings, expectations, associations. It's only been around officially in this country for 114 years. Though as a traditional Catholic holiday, it's been celebrated since the Middle Ages. Images of fathers and father-like beings surround us. The recent and wildly popular series Ted Lasso was about many things, including father and son relationships. The book Between the World and Me by Ta-Nehisi Coates delivers a blistering critique of American culture in the form of a letter to his teenage son. And I'm currently reading Dad's Maybe book by Tim O'Brien, which is a poignant series of messages to his young sons, partly about his experiences in the Vietnam War. A thought just occurred to me, Arran. What kind of music scares balloons? Pop music, yes, exactly. Dad joke, yep. They're not as good as Andy's, but they'll work. Father's Day is an important time to check in with the complex feelings that this day may evoke. The ideal of the wise, patient, loving, all-knowing provider was never more than a useful television trope. At its best, this ideal gives people a positive role in child rearing to aspire to. But at its worst, it casts patriarchy in a benevolent light and is the natural order of things. And it also creates an impossible standard for new fathers to live up to that denies the messy, frustrating realities and constant failings that are part and parcel of parenthood. Sometimes it feels like Father's Day is more about enshrining a myth than it is about facing the realities of fatherhood that often fall so short. For some of us, the story of fatherhood is about love, acceptance, and guidance. But for others, it is a story of rejection, abuse, shame, or abandonment. For some, it is a story of nurturance, but for others, it is marked by frustration and resentment. A story of burdens and unrealized dreams. For some, fatherhood is the longing for children unborn or lost to death or estrangement. And many of us have no father story at all. Whatever your story and your feelings about having or not having, being or not being a father, we honor your unique experience this day. And I invite you to let your experience be what it is without measuring it against those false ideals. While your Father's Day may be anything but a celebration, the force of this idea of father affects us all in one way or another. So let us take a moment to go inward and experience the thoughts and feelings that we have around the concept of father. Hey, Arran?
Yes, Justin.
What does a grumpy father eat on his birthday?
I don't know.
A crab cake, of course. So it's been a busy and emotional summer in terms of being a dad, with one daughter getting married, the other leaving for college, and the whole process of navigating that looming empty nest experience. Fatherhood has had its share of experiences of astounding love and care. At the same time, it's been fraught with this kind of disorienting uncertainty. And that uncertainty started early, and it was actually reinforced in graduate school. Someone whose work I admired and resonated with, the psychologist Erich Fromm, anybody know his work? In his book, The Art of Loving, he said, the relationship to father is quite different. Mother is the home we come from. She is nature, soil, the ocean. Father does not represent any such natural home. And I did a record kind of screech there. Okay, wait, that's not what I signed up for. And then a little bit after that, he said, fatherly love is conditional love. Its principle is, I love you because you fulfill my expectations. I was like, what? That's not the kind of father I want to be. I've always wanted to have close relationships with my daughters, but they kind of shun that closeness. Society discourages it in many ways, and let's face it, I don't really know how to do that, how to make it happen. Sure, I've read lots of parenting books, and I'm up to speed on those attachment interventions, and all those resources have helped me in powerful ways, but only to a point. At the same time, I simply lack the modeling and the internal, I don't know what, for how such a connection is cultivated, or even how it feels. It's maddening and frustrating, and I don't know if that's a small problem or a big problem. So I've often turned to yogic principles to try to make sense of it all. For example, the prospect of non-attachment makes sense to me in many ways, but not when it comes to parenting. On one hand, it sounds easy enough, but it's something I've always struggled with in terms of being a dad. Of course, non-attachment does not mean non-love. In fact, it's just the opposite. Still, it's so easy to get attached to those beings, those moments, those expectations without even realizing it. You just want to hold on to things. Want time to slow down for just a couple of seconds. And being an anxiety-prone person, it's so easy to give into those urges, to try to manage, craft, and yes, to control things. Even now, maybe especially now, I'm wanting to cultivate as many of those experiences as possible before it's too late. Before it's too late. It's been dismaying, too, to realize that I've often given more to therapy clients than to my own children in some ways. More in the sense of empathy, acceptance, understanding. My daughters have seemed strangely resistant to all those experiences as well. Why? How am I different between these settings, home and work? As my girls have gotten older, there's been more of that, don't therapize me stance, more of that, I'm not one of your clients response, and more of the, I don't do feelings perspective. Then, fearing that things are slipping out of control in my relationships with them, I've tended to step in with more curt and abrupt explanations than I've intended, and as a result, I really do lose that balance that I've tried to maintain. So it's just a strange cycle. I know cognitively in my head that it's going to return when they're older. So there's another yogic principle that does help a lot, and it says that we're not entitled to the fruits of our labors. We're entitled to our labors, but not the fruits of our labors. All of that leaves me wanting to breathe, maybe those 3 times. Experience and be. That astounding care and love, though, when I can stay focused on experiencing that in the moment, it's exhilarating. It's incredible. There are moments of tender and connected laughter, like just a couple of days ago when my youngest daughter asked questions about my dissertation for the first time. She looked it up, she started reading the abstract, and she turned to me and said, "You wrote this?" And then there are the profoundly spiritual moments, like reading a story that Mina wrote, or looking at a painting that Viv's done, or listening, really listening to a song that they enjoy, hearing about their dreams for the future. Those are the moments that leave me dumbfounded, awestruck, and humbled. In those moments, I feel connected and loving. One of my favorite poets is Ross Gay, and he talks about there being this unabashed gratitude, and it's in those moments that I can dip into that unabashed gratitude. Not necessarily very long, and again, there's that urge to want to control it, to hang on to that, but I can hang on to it at least briefly. Speaking of gratitude in the context of fatherhood, this is a wonderful time to both provide for and offer nurturing to your All Souls community. We want to thank you for giving back to the community that both sustains and nourishes you. The options for giving are on the title slide on the screens above me. They're also being posted in the chat on Zoom. And hey, Arran? Got a knock-knock joke. Knock-knock.
Who's there?
Doris.
Doris, who?
Doris locked. That's why I'm knocking.
Do you want to come over on this side?
Okay, I'm here to talk a little bit about things that I wished I knew before I became a father, and just add some stuff. You know, I was thinking cell phone, iPad. Besides being a dad, I'm a grandfather, and I just took some notes, bullet points on paper. So I guess that shows my age.
Folks on Zoom can't hear you if you don't speak up.
Oh, right, Arran? Speak in the microphone, I like to walk around. First time dads, greetings. Really everybody who has helped in raising a child, especially to moms doing the double duty. I see you and I know how difficult that can be. Also other grandfathers, you've been through it a couple of times, you understand. I've got 2 children. My daughter and granddaughter are not here, they're out of town. My son is here, but I'm not gonna make him stand up or anything. But if he wants, I'll give you time for rebuttal. Just saying that what I'm saying is crap, you know? So at the hospital when my daughter was born, new father, great, and I thought that dads would get a joke book, as you were talking about. We call them Uncle Bernie jokes in my family because of my late uncle. My dad really didn't tell jokes, but Uncle Bernie, he was the king, and I have taken up the mantle of his jokes. And also what I really thought I was going to get was a pair of New Balance tennis shoes. don't you think all dads need New Balance? I hear that he might be coming back. I don't know. So Jessica was born, my kids were 18 months apart. And I asked my wife, Julie, at the time, after having a little girl, I said, Julie, how can you love a little boy? I just couldn't connect that with my daughter. And then I found out it was damn easy to love a little boy too. One of the things for me, before I became a dad, I was an uncle. And I found out that, you know what, I can do this daddy thing. I had a niece and nephew, Nick and Ashley, who taught me a lot of stuff. We were at a fireworks thing one time in Baltimore, my hometown, looking over the Inner Harbor. They're doing fireworks, everything. And I guess Ashley was 3, Nick about 5. And then Ashley had to use the bathroom, and it was just the men's room that were open. So she says to me and Nick, I need my privacy. Okay, great. So she has Nick and I standing in front of the stall next to each other, going like that so no one can peek in. So Ashley has her privacy. My own daughter and even my granddaughter pull that off, I need my privacy. I can't really give you guys any tips on setting up a nursery or how to baby-proof your house. There's enough information on that, but I really didn't know 100% about that, at the time at least. And one thing I did learn, that pregnancy cravings are real, truth. My wife at the time, when Jessica was born, beef stew. All she wanted, beef stew. One morning, she sends me out to the grocery store, 2 in the morning, for a can of that horrendous Dinty Moore, It's the only stuff that we could find. She was happy. And when Brett was born, coleslaw. That's what she wanted. And I'm sure dads out there, you can tell stories, moms, what your stuff was at the time. Another thing I learned was you must get comfortable with the uncomfortable. I didn't really think about that much, but it's just a matter of how to handle the kids when they're doing tantrums or whatever. Just keep calm when you're doing that, and you don't really want to project you going crazy when your kid's going crazy. It's not a good idea at all. It's also like being that family, because your little ones are probably going to misbehave in a grocery store, in a restaurant. It just happens. Of course, I didn't think it was going to happen to me, but it happens. It happens. I remember a time where we went to the Double T Diner outside of Baltimore, going right in. Jessica pukes right on Julia's back. We turn around, home we went. And that certainly wasn't the most pleasant smelling car ride. But it's gonna happen. You'll learn that, dads. One other thing I learned was these hands have been in every bodily fluid imaginable. Happens, you know. You can think of it, moms and dads, you can get your hands in there and do what is necessary. Also, I wanted to talk a little bit about blended families. At the beginning, I never really thought it'd be blended family, but through marriages, divorces, births, weddings, we have been very fortunate to have a family that gets together, loves each other, accepts each other regardless. And I'm pretty sure you've heard horror stories to the opposite, but we've been very, very fortunate on that. And then finally, I wanted to mention, and I'm finding this out as the years go by for me, the older I get, the more I realize I need my kids and grandkids more than they need me. And you're going to find that out pretty sure. So that's my talk about what I learned or what I thought I knew before I had kids. Hey, thank you.
Hey, Arran,
Yes, Justin.
what's brown and sticky?
I don't know. What's brown and sticky?
A stick. I heard that a few times, yeah.
For the record, I did not know about any of those ahead of time. Maybe there was a mild warning. My name's Arran, he, him. I have 3 kids, 2 of which are still at home. And every so often I do a little practice that I started about 10 years ago. I kind of reach inward and check on my felt sensation of connection 3 times, once for each kid. And if I notice a sense of connection with one of my kids, feeling atrophied or weak, I ask for some time, typically doing something that they enjoy more than me. It works really well. I highly recommend it. But there's a problem. The problem is when I lose my sense of connection to myself, I don't do that anymore. I don't do a lot of things that are really important and make my life worthwhile and meaningful for me and probably for my kids as well. And what's interesting is I found that the things that I worry about for my kids and don't want happening for my kids are kind of the things that I do that mess with my foundational sense of connection to myself and all these other things I'm trying to do. So, to circle back, I think most of us have heard an alarm going off, but also, even before the pandemic and the lockdown and all of that, I think we've all heard of this crisis of mental health in kids and teenagers, and especially if you have kids who are teenagers, that's kind of a big deal. There's lots of, like I said, the pandemic, the lockdown, and there's lots of explanations for social isolation and depression and increasing suicide attempts. My personal favorite was the study that showed 2 charts. One that showed the adoption of smartphones over time amongst kids and teenagers. And then you overlay this another chart that shows the rise in incidence of suicide attempts in those ages, and the overlap is, it's like almost a perfect correlation. I know we've got a lot of scientists and wannabe scientists here, so we know that correlation isn't the same as cause and effect, but that striking overlap, simultaneous elevation is really, I think, worth looking at and worth pointing at. And then to step away from that that style of evidence and go back to kind of a personal, anecdotal evidence. My personal experience is that I've watched my kids get drawn into just being locked into this. And lately, it's not even, texting. It's just scrolling, doom scrolling, whatever that means. And I had strict rules for my kids around screen time. But once they turned 15, I backed off on those rules and let them begin to make their own choices, just as I make my own choices for me. Well, something I noticed over the last year let me back up a second. One of the conversations I have with my kids is about how when we're stressed or we have uncomfortable feelings, it's really natural to reach for your favorite distraction or anesthetic to kind of numb those feelings and separate us from that uncomfortable thing. What I've noticed for me for the last years, I've had some new stressors and things going on in my life, and I found myself reaching for my phone as a reflex to distract and numb. And guess what? I got disconnected from myself, and all those important things weren't happening as much anymore, or maybe not at all. So 3 weeks ago, I deleted the app that I'd spent the most time scrolling on from my phone. And I've talked to my kids more. And I've told them about what's happened with me and how I've deleted this thing and now I'm working on reconnecting with myself and my sense of connection to myself and all that kind of stuff. And we're starting to connect again. Just a little bit and just from time to time, but it's happening. It's moving back in that same direction. And that's been my experience of fatherhood is sometimes I'm rolling right along and they're rolling right along and everything's going great and then gets derailed. And there's this, I guess, felt experience of connection and disconnect and on the road and off the road. But generally we're moving in the right direction just a little bit from time to time.
Of course, this hymn is about human touch and how it can help us. Our closing words are about how the natural world can kind of augment that. So I invite you to close your eyes if you're comfortable doing that, just for a few moments, to listen to these words and this beautiful music. This is The Peace of Wild Things by Wendell Berry. When despair for the world grows in me, and I wake in the night at the least sound, in fear of what my life and my children's lives may be, I go and lie down where the wood drake rests in his beauty on the water and the great heron feeds. I come into the peace of wild things who do not tax their lives with forethought of grief. I come into the presence of still water, and I feel above me the day-blind stars waiting with their light. For a time I rest in the grace of the world and am free.